Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Marie, I'm a graphic designer, and if you're watching this tutorial, it's probably because you've downloaded one of my digital files off of my Etsy shop. I would like to thank you for supporting me, my business, and my passion. Right after your purchase, you're able to download a zip file. If you unzip it, you will find two folders, a no score folder and a scoring tool needed folder. Each one has 6 different file types in it. You will also find a PDF file with written instructions on how to use the cut files. Included in the written instructions is the link to this video tutorial, where I explain step by step how to create this heart-shaped box. I also go over some general instructions that you can use for my other files as well. I cover how to upload the files, the measurement units, how to select, how to create groups, and how to resize in both Silhouette Studio and Cricut Design Space. Let's start with preparing your project in Silhouette Studio. Open Silhouette Studio. An empty board is automatically created. So now you can either open your file in a new board or merge it onto the existing board. I'm going to merge it onto this board since it's empty. So I'm going to go to File, Merge, and select the No Score DXF file for Silhouette. Select and click OK. We have opened the box template, no scoring tool needed. As you can see, our box is composed by 3 parts. The bottom part of the box, the lid, and this heart shape, which is going to be a translucent paper cutout, which is going to get glued on to the lid of our box. Silhouette Studio has changed the dimensions of the box to fit the artboard. So our heart box is no longer the original dimensions that it was created in, but is now smaller. I'm going to show you how to resize the template. I'm also going to show you the measurement units, how to select, and how to create a group. These are general rules that you can use for this file, the no score file, or you can use for the scoring tool needed file. Let's start with the measurement unit. If you want to know with what unit you're working with, go to Edit, and then select Preferences, and a new tab will open. Here you can see Unit of Measurement, and it is set to centimeters. If you click on the drop-down menu, you can change to any of these other units. I'm going to leave it to centimeters, so I'm going to click Cancel to close the tab. But if you've selected anything different than what was already there, click OK to apply. When resizing your template, you want to make sure that you select all the parts that component. Don't make the mistake of resizing certain parts and not others, otherwise your box won't turn out. So let's go over the selection tools. To select everything, you can click and drag the selection box over all the parts you want to select. This way, you select everything that you've covered with the selection box. Or you can use the keyboard shortcut Control-A to select everything on the board. When you have all of the template parts selected, you can also see the dimensions and the unit. One last thing I want to cover before the resize is groups. Since this project has 3 different parts to it, that can be cut out in different materials, we want to divide them by groups. So we want to create the bottom part of the box, the top part of the box, and the heart. While everything is selected, go to Object and Released Compound Path. Now, each part of our template is separate. So if you click and drag on any of the parts, it's going to move it from its original position, and we do not want that. So if you've moved any of the parts, to undo, click Ctrl-Z on your keyboard. Now let's create the groups. Click and drag a selection box that goes over all of the parts that create the bottom part of our box. Make sure you've selected all of the parts and that you didn't miss any. And you didn't select any extra by mistake. And then go to Object, Group. Now you can click anywhere in the group to select all of the components of that group. Now I'm going to do the same for the top part of the box. So I'm going to click and drag a selection box over all the components of the top part of the box. Once I've selected all of them and only them, I can go to Object and Group. Again, I can click anywhere in the group to select the parts of that group. This last shape, I don't have to group because it's one shape. Now, we can easily select any one of the three parts that compose our box. Now, let's go over how to resize our box template. You can do this in two ways. You can either manually resize it, or you can resize it with specific measurements. Either way, you want to make sure, like I said earlier, that you select everything on the artboard or all the parts of the template. If you want to resize manually, all you have to do is make sure you select all the parts. So you can click, drag a selection box over everything and make sure it's selected. Or, like I said earlier, click Ctrl-A on the keyboard to select everything. Once you have your selection, you can go to either one of the anchor points and drag outwards to make it bigger, or inwards towards the center to make it smaller. You can see that it will scale proportionally. Don't make the mistake to use the side lines instead of the anchor points, because this would distort your template. The second method is to enter specific dimensions. To do this, you're going to have to group everything that you want to resize. So make sure everything is selected, go to Object, Group, and then select the group, and go here to the size section in the top bar. Here, you want to make sure that the lock aspect ratio is locked and not open, because this way, when you change either one of the dimensions, the other one will change proportionally with it. If the icon is unlocked, only one dimension will change and the other will remain the same. So I'm going to put 18.5 and hit enter on the keyboard. As you can see, the width has proportionally changed with the height that I have entered. So now we have our template, back to the original size it was created in. Once you have the final dimensions of your box, so you know that you won't be making any more modifications to the size, you can go to Object Ungroup, so that we have our 3 original parts, which is a group for the bottom part of the box, a group for the top part of the box, and the heart shape. The reason why the template is divided in 3 parts is because we can use different materials for each part. The heart is going to be cut out of translucent paper, while the box, bottom and top, are going to be cut out of cardstock. Now you can either use the same color cardstock, or you can use 2 different colors. If you use only one color, you can fit them both on the same cutting board if you have paper that covers the entire cutting board size. If you want to use 2 different papers for the top and the bottom of the box, put them on the cutting board one at a time. Just make sure that the paper covers the entire cutting area. At this point, we can start cutting. So if you're using the no score file, you can just keep watching. If you're using the scoring tool needed file, you can skip to the next part of the video. I'm going to cut the top part of the box and the bottom part using the same color paper. So I'm going to place them both on the board, which is a preview of the cutting mat, and then go to the top right and click send. Since all the lines in this template are cut lines, all you have to do is choose the material. I'm going to click on cardstock plain, but if you have a textured paper or thicker paper, you can change it to cardstock heavy. Make sure the blade is on cut, and if you like, you can change the settings. Now all you have to do is upload the mat in your machine and click send. As soon as your machine is done cutting, we can go back to the Design tab and move the bottom and top part of the box off of the board and place the heart shape. So now it's time to put the translucent paper on your cutting mat. Then go to the send section and choose the material. I'm going to choose a cardstock textured heavy, and I'm going to make sure the blade is uncut. I'm going to increase the settings, and I'm also going to change it to 2 passes because this material is resistant. So upload your machine with the cutting mat and click send. Once your machine is done cutting, go ahead and grab your cut paper, and you can skip to the assemble part of the tutorial. Let's go over the settings if you're cutting your box using a scoring tool. If you followed the first part of the Silhouette Studio tutorial, you should have 3 parts for your template: the bottom part of the box, the top part of the box, and this heart shape. This way, you can easily cut each part on a different material. In this tutorial, I'm going to cut the top part of the box and the bottom part using the same paper. So I'm going to place them together on the cutting mat. But if you plan on cutting them on 2 different types of paper, you can place first the top part and cut it, and then cut the bottom part separately. So I've placed both parts on the board, which is a preview of the cutting mat, and then I'm going to go to the send section in the top right. Now I'm going to click on the line tab over here, And you can see that our template has two colors, black and red. The black is for the cut lines and the red is for the score lines. So let's start by adding the correct material. I'm going to choose cardstock plain, but if you have a heavier material, you can choose accordingly. I also have an auto blade, so I'm going to use the same blade for cutting and scoring. But if you have two different tools, you can go ahead and set tool number 1 and tool number 2. I'm going to go ahead and change the red color to score and leave the black color to cut, which was automatically set. If you want, you can change the settings down below here. And when you're done, just load your cutting mat with the paper on it in the machine and click send. Once the machine is done cutting, let's go back to the program. We're going to click on design to go back to our template. At this point, all we have to do is cut the heart shape. So we're going to move the top and bottom part of the box off of the board, and we're going to select the heart shape and drag it on to the board. Since the board is a preview of the cutting mat, place the shape where you want the machine to cut. Then click on send, and now you can see that the heart shape only has black lines, meaning that we are only going to be cutting without scoring. So we can go ahead and deselect the red line because we don't need it, and only leave the black lines, which are for cutting. I'm going to go ahead and change the material to cardstock texture heavy. And if you like, you can change the settings. I'm going to increase them, and I'm also going to change the passes to 2 passes because the translucent paper is thicker and more resistant than normal cardstock. When you have the right settings, load your cutting mat in the machine and click send. Once you have all of your parts, it's time to assemble the box. Cricut Design Space. Preparing your project in Cricut Design Space. Let's go over some basic instructions that are valid for the scoring tool and no score tool file. Open Cricut Design Space and click on New Project. Here you can optimize your experience for one of these specific machines. Now that we have a new empty canvas, go here where it says upload. Then upload image, and here you can see the files that the program supports. We're going to go ahead and use the SVG file. So click on browse and select the SVG file you want to upload, either the no score one or the one with scoring tool needed. Since I want to go over some general settings before we go to the cutting settings, I'm going to use the no score file, but what I'm going to explain now applies for both. So our box is composed by 3 parts. The bottom part of the box, the top part, which is the lid, and this heart shape, which is a cutout that's going to be added to the lid. So when you open your template, the program automatically groups everything. If you want to resize the box, it's best to do so while all the parts are grouped. Otherwise, you have to make sure that you select everything before scaling up or down. So let's start by going over the measurement unit. If you select the group, you can see that mine is in centimeters, yours might be different. If you want to change this, go to the three lines up here, click on Settings, go to Canvas, and here you can see Units. So it's set to metric, but you can change it to imperial if you want. Since I'm not going to change anything, I'm going to click on the X. But if you made any adjustments, click Done to apply. Now we can go over the resizing. So you can either leave it to its original size, like it is now, or you can make it bigger or smaller. As I said, when resizing, make sure that you have everything selected. So it's best to do so when they're still all grouped. You can change the size in two ways, manually or entering specific dimensions. So to resize manually, select the group and use any one of these anchor points by dragging towards the center to shrink to make it smaller, or outwards to make it bigger. Make sure that you don't accidentally resize using one of the sidebars, because that would distort the template, and we don't want that. If you make any mistakes, hit Ctrl-Z on your keyboard to go back. Now the second way to resize is using specific dimensions. So to do this, select the group and then go up to the top bar where it says size here, and it has the width and the height. But before entering, you can enter the width or the height, but you have to make sure that the lock proportion icon is closed and not open. If it's open and you enter a dimension to the width or the height, the other one won't change proportionally. So if you make sure that the icon is locked, you can enter a width or height, hit enter on your keyboard, and the other will change proportionally. Now let's go over the group. So as I said, the program has automatically grouped all the parts of the template, but we need to separate them by selecting the group and clicking ungroup. This might take a few seconds because we are going to print each part of the box, the top part, the bottom part, and the heart on different materials. So now that everything is ungrouped, if you click and drag on any of the parts, you're going to move them or separate them from their original position. Since we don't want to lose any pieces, we are going to attach them. This black heart shape is one shape, so we can leave it as it is. These other two, the top part of the box and the bottom part of the box, we have to attach. So we're going to click and drag a selection box over all of the parts that make the top lid. Make sure you have covered all of the pieces, and then go here and click attach. If you don't do this, when you proceed to the cutting mat, all the pieces are going to be in disorder. So we're going to do the same for the bottom part of the box. So click and drag a selection box over all of the pieces. Make sure you cover them all, you don't miss any. And then click attach. So now we have the three parts that we need for our box. And we can click on either one of them and it will select just that part. So you can click on the heart on the lid or the bottom part of the box, move them, and see that all the parts move because they're attached together. I'm going to go over one last thing before proceeding to the cut, the selection. So as I said, when resizing, you want to make sure you select all the parts of the template. Otherwise, you might distort the file. So now that the parts are separate, if you decide that you still want to resize or change something, you have to make sure that you select all three by clicking and dragging a selection box over everything, or hitting Control A on your keyboard, and that is the shortcut to select everything on the canvas. Now that we've explained these general rules, we can proceed to the individual files. No score SVG file for Cricut Design Space. If you want to use the no score file, and you have followed the first part of the Cricut Design Space tutorial, at this point you're ready to proceed with the cutting. This file only has cut lines. Even if you see the dashed lines, they are still cut lines. So you can go and click on Make It. I'm going to click on Matte and leave the first size here. So we have three parts to our box, and they are all three going to be cut on different mats. So the bottom part is going to stay here on the first mat, while this heart shape that needs to be cut on translucent paper, we're going to move on a third mat. So click on these three dots, move object, new, and select the same color, and it put it on this third mat. So now we have the bottom part, the top part of the box, and the heart. So the bottom and the top part of the box you can cut on the same color paper if you like, or you can use two different color papers or two different textures. Instead, the heart shape on the third mat needs to be cut on translucent paper. At the moment, I don't have a Cricut, I have a silhouette, so I'm going to go and click Cancel, but you can proceed with the cutting at this point. Scoring tool needed SVG file for Cricut Design Space. If you want to use the scoring tool needed file for your Cricut, open Cricut Design Space and click on New Project. Go to Upload, Upload Image. Here you can see the file formats that the program supports. We are going to use the SVG file, so click on Browse and select the SVG file for Cricut. Open and then Upload. Now select it and add to Canvas. If you haven't watched the first part of the Cricut Design Space tutorial, where I explain some general things, I would suggest that you do. So the program automatically creates a group with the template parts. So we're going to select the group and go, I'm going to scale the view down a little bit so you can see the entire template. So select the group and then go to the layers section over here and click on ungroup. This might take a few seconds. So now once all of the parts are ungrouped, if you move any one of them, you're gonna separate it from its original position, and you don't want that. What we need to do is change the red lines to score lines. So you can see if you go to the color sync that the template is made of two colors, the black lines, which are cut lines, and the red lines, which are score lines. Unfortunately, we can't select all the red lines at once because we have to manually change them to score lines. So we're going to have to select all the red lines one by one and change them from cut to score. So you can easily recognize the score lines, like I said, because they're red. So go here to the template, click on the lines that are red. You can see the color here. And change it in the operations section. And change it from basic cut to score. Once you do that, it's going to turn it into a dashed black line. Now we have to do this with all of the red lines. So let's start selecting. If you click on one of the black lines, leave it. Some of the red lines might be hard to get to if they are underneath a black line, because the program's going to select the line that is on top. So if you have this problem, just click, and if the program selects the black line, right click with your mouse and click on send to back. This way it will send the black line to the back, and you can easily select the red line that is on top. As I said, unfortunately, we have to do these one by one manually. So I'm going to speed this up a little bit. So just go around and select all the red lines on the bottom part of the box and all the red lines on the top part of the box. Once you have changed them all to score, and you want to make sure that you didn't miss any, you can go here to the color sync, because as I said, when you change them to score, it changes the red line to a dashed black line. So if you go to the color sync panel here, there should be no more red lines. So if the color red is still there, it means that we've missed a few. So I'm going to go on the drop-down menu. See, I've only missed one. And it's the one here on the bottom part of the bottom box. So I'm going to select it. See, I selected the black one. So I'm going to right-click, send to black, and now I can easily select the red line and go to the operation score. See, the red color has disappeared, meaning that I've correctly changed all of the red lines to dashed lines. Now we need to attach the three parts together. So click and drag a selection box over all of the components of the bottom part of the box and click attach. Do the same for the lid. Click and drag a selection box over all the pieces and click attach. Make sure you don't leave any pieces out. This one is already one shape, so we don't have to do anything. If you don't attach the pieces, which keeps them into place, when you proceed to the cutting mat, it's going to rearrange their position, and we don't want that. So at this point, we can go to the cutting part. So click on Make It. I'm going to click on Mat and leave the default size here. Since we can use different materials for the different parts, we want to put each part on a different cutting mat. The program has already put the lid on the second mat, and then the bottom part of the box with this heart on the first mat. So to move the heart on a third mat, click on the three dots and click on Move Object. Then New, I'm going to leave current colors, and now it's put it on this third mat. So now we can cut the bottom and lid of the box on cardstock paper. You can either use the same color or use two different colors or two different textures. And then cut the heart shape on translucent paper. Now I don't have a Cricut, I have a silhouette. So I'm gonna go ahead and click cancel at this point, but you can proceed with the cutting. Now that you know how to use the cut files, it's time to go over the assembly instructions. So what you need for this project: you need one large sheet of cardstock paper, 175 grams or higher, if you're going to do your project in one color. Or you can use 2 sheets of A4 paper if you want to create your box in 2 colors. You also need a sheet of translucent paper, a cutting machine or scissors to cut by hand, and last, glue. Once you've prepared your cutting files, add the paper to the cutting mat, the cardstock paper and the translucent paper, and cut out your pieces. This template is made out of 3 pieces. There's the bottom part of the box, the top part of the box, and the translucent heart cut out. That is going to get glued on the top part of the box, which is the lid. Once you have all of your parts, you should have 1, 2, and 3. This here we don't need, so you can get rid of that unless you want to use it for something else. So this is the top part of the box, and we're going to start by folding all of the fold lines. So we have the glue flaps, and then we have the sides of the box. So I'm going to go around and fold everything downwards, except for this flap right here, this glue flap. This is the only one that is going to get folded upwards. All of the other ones are folded downwards. I'm going to go around, fold everything. Whether you've used the no score file or the scoring tool file, these should fold pretty easily. There we go. Once you've folded everything, let's move to the bottom part of the box, which has the exact same shape as the lid and the same folds. So we're just going to go around. I'm going to start by folding all of the glue flaps. Like before, this flap here, just a second, this flap here is the only one that gets folded upwards. Everything else is folded downwards. So once you've folded all of the glue flaps, go ahead and fold all of the sides of the box. Alrighty, we have the last 2 sides here, so let's fold down and fold down. Once you're done folding all of the sides and flaps, we can proceed to the gluing. So grab your craft glue or hot glue, and let's get started. So gluing can be tricky sometimes because the glue doesn't dry right away, and until it's dry, any of the parts can move. So I usually apply the glue. I'm just going to glue 1 or 2 flaps at a time. So I'm going to apply the glue, and then I'm going to have it sit a little bit. So when I go to stick it together, it's already a little bit dry. So fold the side over the glued flap and bring it all the way to the fold line. And keep it in position And I'm going to use these clips to hold it into place until the glue dries. Otherwise, you can hold it with your fingers if you want. So again, add the flap to the side, apply some pressure with your fingers to make sure the glue sticks everywhere. And then I'm going to add the clip. You can use paper clips as well if you have them. I'm going to go ahead and speed this part of the video a little bit because you just keep adding the glue to the glue flap. You have the guide, the assembly guide in the instruction file. So I'm going to add the glue, wait a few seconds, and then glue it to the other side. And the first parts here are all the same. You just add the glue and then glue it to the side of the box. So once the glue is dry, you can take off the clips. Now just keep going around until you get to the top part of the heart. Here it's slightly different because we have to glue the glue flaps to the bottom part of the box instead of the side. So again, I'm just going to add a little bit of glue on the bottom part of the box, wait a few seconds, and put the glue flaps in position. Here I'm going to have to hold it with my fingers a few seconds to keep it into place. Let me glue this side first. There we go. I'm trying to do this as fast as possible so that the video isn't too long. Usually I would have the glue sit a little bit longer before putting these sides together. There we go. Also, you have to make sure that you don't wait too long. Otherwise, if the glue dries and one of the parts is in the wrong position, it's going to be a problem to undo. So here with the flaps that get glued on the bottom part of the box, as I said, I'm going to have to hold them into place with my fingers because I can't really apply any clips here. There we go. I'm going to add a little bit more pressure. And as soon as I see that the glue is almost dry and the flaps stay in position, I'm going to add the glue to the other side here, always on the bottom part of the box, and on this flap here. This one, remember, we folded, it's the only one that was folded differently from the other ones. And it's going to be our last glue flap. So again, I'm going to have to put the bottom flaps into position with my fingers and hold it a few seconds while the glue dries, and at least until it keeps it into place without moving. There we go. This last flap that we can call the closing flap, we can clip. There we go. So now if you go around and make sure everything is in place and correctly glued, you can leave it to dry. Okay, and here is the bottom part of the box. Again, I'm going to speed this up a little bit because the lid here, which is the top part of the box, at the moment is exactly like the bottom. So it has the exact same glue flaps, and I'm going to glue it using the same system. I'm going to apply the glue, wait a few seconds, then glue the two sides together and add the clip to keep it into place until it dries. I'm going to glue all the parts of the top part of the box here, and only when I've glued everything and it's dry, I'm going to add the translucent sheet. The reason why I didn't add it right away is because of these flaps, the glue flaps here on the top that need to be glued on the bottom here. So if I had glued the translucent paper, those would not be attaching properly now. I'm going to take these off. Okay, so we're almost at the end here. As before, this part I have to hold with my fingers. So I'm going to position the flaps and then keep them into place with my hands for a few seconds, just so the glue dries enough to stay into place. And then I'm going to glue the last flap here to close it. While the glue is drying, you can still kind of make adjustments if you have to. Make sure, like I said, that nothing gets glued and dried out of place, because it's going to be hard to fix afterwards. There we go. Alright, I'm going to leave this to dry. And as soon as it's dry, I'm going to add the translucent part. So I'm going to use glue, so I'm going to put little dots of glue all around here. But if you like, you can use tape or double-sided tape or whatever you prefer. So now that I've added the glue there all around, I'm going to get this. Make sure you don't get any glue on it because it's see-through. You'll be able to see it. I'm going to stick it in the lid here and apply pressure with my finger. Make sure it's stuck well everywhere and leave it to dry again. Once both parts are dry, you can put it together, and here is your heart-shaped box. Make sure that both parts are dry before closing the box. You won't want it to glue shut. Thank you for downloading one of my files. I really hope this video tutorial was useful and that you found all the information you were looking for. If you're satisfied with your project, don't forget to leave me a review. Also, you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, TikTok, and YouTube. I would like to thank you for supporting my business and passion.